Hey, Tamika, I'm so glad that you are on to tell your story. I'm really excited about this. How does it feel to tell your story?
Sometimes I feel nervous to tell my story, and but usually it comes out over time. And I do feel like I need to share it because a lot of moms are going through the things I've been through.
Right, right. And agreed. And I know you and I literally just were talking about it before we hit record. So I'm excited for the moms who are listening to really hear what you have to share and potentially have some of them see themselves in you. So thank you. So I guess share with us, where does it all begin for you? Where does your story begin?
Uh, I would say it begins with me never really being sure about becoming a mother. And I think that's kind of the impetus for a lot of things that happened with my motherhood journey. Um, see a little Tamika walking around, but even as a child, I knew that women took on a lot of the work, and I didn't want that. But I ended up meeting someone around 30. And by the time we had my daughter, I was 33. Turns out I was right. When the baby came, my ex husband turned into a completely different person. And I found out the truth about a lot of things. And unsurprisingly, he chose to manipulate and gaslight me. And I really did think I was going crazy.
My goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I know that you are a member of our community. And so you've been like pretty transparent with us inside the community about that experience and about what that was like for you. And even sharing that in the community, I've noticed that women were able to kind of, realize that you and them had a shared experience. Um, wow. Wow.
Right. It's unfortunate, but it seems a little more common than I expected because I thought I was doing this all alone. I'm the only person going through this, and apparently not.
No, not at all. Not at all. And honestly, you and I know because within the community, we know that there are other women who have had that experience. But, me speaking to women just on social media, on Instagram, I will assure you, you are not the only one. And there's literally women going through it right now and just kind of questioning those experiences that you literally just spoke to. And so I wanted to ask you, one thing that I recently started to talk about a little bit more online was just this idea of being a married single mom. And that came about because I saw a reel of someone else, a different podcast. And it was a clip of this woman talking about there are a lot of married women who are married single moms.
Mhm.
And it was just so interesting because that was the very first time that I had heard that term, a married single mom. And she broke it down perfectly. She basically just said that it is a woman who is married and also has a child with her husband, but she is essentially a single mom within that relationship. And it just got a lot of comments, a lot of views. It got a lot of opinions. There were people who agreed and disagreed. And, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like that term, married single mom, is something that is valid or really describes your situation?
Oh, I totally think it's valid. When I first saw those TikToks and things, I was like, oh, yeah, totally relate to that. And it definitely described my situation, which was a shocking thing for me. I had a boyfriend who was just so wonderful. And he told me all these stories about how he helped his friends raise their children. And he's such a fantastic godfather. And he was just going to be a fantastic father when he became one, which our child together was his first child and my first child. So I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. This is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I want. And then we had our daughter, and he became the literal opposite of that. He refused to be an equal partner and thought that because I'm a woman that I should know how to raise a child. Again, my first child and his first child. And I asked him why he wouldn't help me, and he literally said to me, I've never been a parent before. And
Well,
I'm like, okay, this is my first child. And I didn't feel like I really had that maternal instinct that people talk about. He
mhm,
thought I had it just by virtue of being a woman, but I didn't feel that inside.
mhm. And I think that happens so much. Like so much of what you're saying is just like, I feel like we got to pause and like process it because like people view women as having this instinctual maternal
Mhm.
instinct. And that's just not true. And honestly, I think many women put that pressure on themselves. They have been taught to believe because I'm a woman, because I carried the baby for 9 months. And all the while, there are many mothers who don't carry their children But like, just because you were a mom, or just because you carried the child, or just because you literally are female, like genetically, they think that that means that there's this instinctual maternal instinct that's supposed to kick in. And for some women, they say, yeah, that's the case. That's their experience. But many women know that is not the case. And just like it was his first child, it also was your first child too.
And it makes us feel like something's wrong with this.
Mm-hmm.
Either mentally something is wrong, or maybe my hormones aren't doing what they're supposed to do, but I should be able to do this. And then I have a partner who is saying, yeah, you should be able to do this. You shouldn't even have to Google anything. You shouldn't need any help. You should know it all.
Right. Right. Wow. Like, I don't know, that right there is just kind of deep for me, because I feel like there's so many women who are going through that and they don't even realize it. Like, they literally don't realize that they are living up to this expectation that initially is truly just false. It's false. You know, just because you're a woman does not necessarily mean you will naturally have a maternal instinct that just kicks in. And that it is unfair for your male partner to just rely on you and look to you as, you know, the guide. You know, it essentially means that, hey, you're the mom, so you're supposed to be the leader here. And it starts literally from day one, you know, literally viewing you as the person who knows it all. And I easily can see how that then leads someone to becoming a default parent, but then also a single mom within their marriage, because you supposedly hold all the knowledge and all the tools and the skills to make this child grow.
Exactly. From day one, you become the default parent without even realizing what's happening sometimes.
Yeah. And I also can see how isolating it can be. And I know my next question is going to be about mental health, but I just, it's starting to hit me too. Like you said, it made you feel bad thinking that there was something wrong with you, when really there was not anything wrong with you. And instead there was just this undue pressure, this unfair expectation that was being placed on you that you thought you had to live up to.
Yep, that's exactly it.
And it led you probably to isolate, because I know a lot of women, when they feel like they're failing, especially in motherhood, it's like, well, I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to share that. And so I'm gonna just stop talking. You speak to that. Like, my question is, what was your mental health like in, you know, your overall wellness during this time? And if you could speak to that isolation part, that would be good too.
What is wellness? Like, it didn't exist at this time. And I had a cesarean. So that was an added layer of everything being really hard in the beginning. But like, I was so excited once all the swelling went down and everything. I was back in my pre-pregnancy jeans. So I'm like, yeah, snap back, right? But by the time my daughter was a year old, I probably gained like 30 or 40 pounds. So the physical wellness was not there at all. It was just, I didn't have time. I didn't have the inclination. I really do think I was dealing with some depression as well, not necessarily postpartum, but the issues that I was having in my marriage. I also had terrible financial wellness. And that kind of contributed to my isolation as well. So I had a lot of friends who are still single, childless, and they're having a great time. They're going on trips. I can't afford to do any of that. It was a truly terrible and isolating time.
Mm-hmm.
I've always worked, but I ended up being one of those like 50-50 kind of women they talk about on Twitter. That's not the movie. And my husband made about twice what I made, but I was still paying 50% of everything. Wow. Plus, again, with the default parent, paying for everything dealing with our child. If she needed diapers, if she needed formula, if she needed to go to the doctor, I was paying her insurance. Like, literally everything dealing with her was on me financially. So
I'm sorry. I just was saying, like, I wish people could see my face, like literal disbelief.
Yeah. And I think people don't think about women who are working being financially abused, but that can happen if you're made to pay for a lot of things.
Yep.
I was going into debt in a marriage. Did that make sense? Not at all. But I'm charging diapers on a credit card.
Wow.
Because I couldn't ask my husband for help because I have a job and I'm supposed to do everything.
I literally don't have the words. I'm not supposed to be pausing right now, but I don't know. I'm just feeling so many things. Like, the one thing is making me think about is just the moms who are listening to this, who like this might be the first time that is really hitting them that they are in a similar situation, and how hard that moment might be. And like I could imagine that some women might even just have to take a step away from this very moment because it's heavy. And I think the other thing is making me think about was just, you said the word abuse. And, I think that people have their own ideas or beliefs about what abuse looks like, or what it maybe should be categorized as. For me as a psychologist, I know that abuse can look so many different ways. And I think sometimes we have this misconception that if your abuse is not physical, it's not abuse. But I think you are already speaking to this idea that like, while you it doesn't seem like you were physically abused, it sounds like financial abuse was happening. It sounds like emotional abuse was happening. It sounds like mental abuse was happening. And wow. And so not only, originally you said, what is wellness? There was no wellness. There was nothing. There was no awareness of that. But not only that, you then were being abused, which then further denigrates your wellness. And I know also you had mentioned gaining, 30 pounds. And one thing I want to help moms understand too, I realize, and what I've noticed in working with moms, postpartum weight gain, so common. And I think, we assume that it's because we are maybe just not being as mindful when it comes to our foods. Many moms are breastfeeding, and then if they maybe discontinue breastfeeding, of course, there's that shift. But I think the one thing that we discount is just the mental strain, the emotional strain that comes with being a mom. And especially if you are in a situation like yours.
Right.
Our bodies will hold on to weight. Our bodies will produce hormones that contribute to weight gain when we are stressed and in a crisis. And that's literally how it works. And so it may have little to do with what you're eating, little to do with what's going on with your physical health. And really a huge contributor to a large amount of postpartum weight gain is really just mental and emotional distress that is being undressed, abuse happening. You're being abused and your body is holding on to things because it needs help.
And that's so exactly what was happening for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't that my lifestyle changed in this big way after having my child, other than experiencing this abuse, experiencing all this sadness and grief, and all the things I thought that motherhood would be, they were not. All the things that I had hoped would happen, all the help that I hoped I would have, this fantastic partner, and then I was just alone dealing with the newborn.
Oh my gosh. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Like all the things you hoped it would be, all the things you thought would happen, it was the complete opposite. And not only that, not only were you experiencing abuse, but also grief, like grief of the life that you thought you would have for you and your daughter. So tell me, when did you start to realize that things really needed to change? Because it seems like at this point you were just really in the thick of it. Like, when did you start to realize that something needed to change?
It was funny. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday, and I will never forget it. It was on Easter Sunday, the year after I had my daughter, and I just could not get out of bed. I had all these plans to visit family and, dress her up in a frilly dress and all that good stuff, but I just could not function. And my mom called and I didn't answer. So she just came right over. She was like, oh no, she never, it neglects her phone.
Right.
Something is wrong. So she came over, and I'll never forget like the look on her face. It was just this deep concern. And that's the day she realized something was wrong. And looking at her and feeling the way I was feeling, not being able to function, that's when I knew, like, I have to call somebody. I have to get a therapist because I just can't do this anymore. This is it. And I'm so glad the next day I went to work and I looked up therapists in my area that took my insurance. And like, that really saved my life.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad. And for any mom who is listening to this and has been sitting on finding a therapist, because I know many of y'all you've been telling yourself all year, I need a therapist. I need to get a therapist. And you haven't done it. This is your sign.
Don't have time. I can't afford it. No, you can't have those excuses.
Yeah.
You have to go.
Yeah. Because for you, it literally saved your life.
Literally.
Wow.
Mhm.
And it almost, so one thing that's kind of coming to me, and you tell me if this is incorrect, we talked about like you being isolated in this process. And it also feels like it took someone to really see you and for you to witness the concern on their face, for you to kind of feel validated, like, yeah, something isn't right.
Right. Exactly. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, my partner was gaslighting me. He was
Right.
manipulating me. And I'm thinking, all of this is my fault. I'm wrong. There's something wrong. I'm terrible at being a wife and a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm being abused, not that I have a bad partner, not
Right.
that I'm being isolated and I need help, because it really does take a village.
Yes. Wow. So I'm going to just recap what you said because it was powerful. I think a lot of times when women are in these situations, instead of saying to themselves, I'm being abused, I'm being treated unfairly, I'm not being supported, I don't have the support I need help, they're telling themselves, I'm a bad mom, I'm a bad wife.
Mhm.
I still haven't been able to live up to that expectation. People are counting on me and I keep failing. I'm not doing this right. I'm not good at this. Like, those are the things that women are telling themselves, instead of the fact that, like, no, I'm being abused and I need help.
Right. So
Or
much
I
of
need
that.
more help. I need more help. That is really what's happening.
Right. And that's exactly what happened with me. I blame myself for everything
Mm-hmm.
when it really wasn't me.
Right.
I just needed help.
Right. So tell me, so this is, okay, we're going to talk about this part, because I feel like there have been some people on the internet that have, like, on comments and DMs telling me, oh, you breaking up homes. Like, you're trying to break up
Yes.
homes, because they perceive me right now as pushing for divorce, when really I've never said that people should get divorced. I don't want people to get divorced, but I realize that sometimes that is what needs to happen. And that's why I'm so glad for you to come here and speak to this, for the mamas who do need to see and realize that this is the thing. When did you know that divorce was the only option for you, or that it needed
Um,
to happen?
Therapy led me to that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Realizing that I had a partner who did not want to work with me as I was doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning how to communicate. I was learning all the things that, you should do to have a better relationship with someone. And I was being met against the wall.
Yeah.
He would not help. He would not listen. There was nothing I could do. And during my therapy sessions, I'm learning, I'm changing, I'm growing. And then I see him being stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I started therapy, my focus was parenting, because I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
suck at this. I'm not good at this. If I were better at parenting, I wouldn't feel so bad. I would have more time. I would have time to do the things I used to do with and for my husband.
Wow.
And then it sort of moved to self-care, which, was nearly impossible at the time. And I think that's what got my therapist's attention, me just not being able to do self-care whatsoever. And we started to talk deeply about my marriage, and I shared a lot of the problems we were having. And telling her that he, at the time, hadn't spoken to me for 2 weeks. He was giving me the silent treatment, which he often did. And that's kind of when I don't think she said it straight out, but she was just like, uh, emotional abuse is a type of abuse. And funnily enough, that silent treatment ended up lasting a month.
Oh my God.
Right. Right. So not only was he not talking to me, he was not helping in any kind of way. He had a man cave and he just spent all his time in there. And like he would kick our daughter out of the man cave too. And that was what was most upsetting to me. You can ignore me, but you can't ignore my baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she's innocent in this.
Right.
And
And
you are too, granted. You are.
right. Right.
However, she's a baby.
Mm-hmm. And that's what really kind of made me think about this. Like, okay, I'm so used to him giving me the silent treatment, but I'm not used to him kind of kicking our daughter out of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this was kind of the big part. I found out that he was having substance abuse issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that just made everything make sense to me.
Mm.
And I wanted to work with him on that because, you know, like a lot of us, when I got married, I didn't intend to get divorced.
Right.
That was not my intention at all. I was going to fight. I was going to do whatever, everything that I could to
Yeah.
keep our marriage intact. And I learned that you have to have a partner who's going to work with you to do that.
Wants to do that too.
Mhm. But, you know, he was too busy doing drugs. And I found out he was doing hard drugs.
Mm.
And so when I really knew that I had to leave him, he
Mhm.
texted me one afternoon when he was supposed to pick our daughter up from daycare. And he texted me to tell me that he wasn't coming home. And
Mm.
that was always him telling me, and not in so many words, that he was going on a drug binge. And so I just packed up like 2 weeks worth of stuff for me and my daughter. And I showed up at my dad's house and was like, hey, can I stay here?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Tamika.